this particular comment by King Louis has to do with Miami taking advantage of the COVID pandemic situation to keep kids at home and of course, he's also making a comparison between Roscoe Parrish and Brashard Smith.
There are elements of the comparison that I think work. It's not 100% accurate just because Roscoe Parrish was also very thin in addition to being a little short. But yeah, I mean, I think that invariably you can talk about the fact that, whatever's going on in this pandemic, Miami is capitalizing in terms of recruiting, whether it's guys, realizing that, they want to live close to home. They want to be in this area. They want to be closer to family. Like one of my personal foundational beliefs is family comes first. I've said this for a long time, if for all of our writers at State of the U, I've said that, people are like, hey, I got to step away for a little bit, or I had something, family comes first, like I've seen that in action, I'm not going to go into details, but I've seen myself, I've taken time off and I've done things because my family comes first. I've seen my mother do it. I've seen my grandmother do it. I've seen my aunts and uncles and cousins do it. Family's first. And I think that, a lot of these guys share a similar belief, and you're seeing that. The Miami coaching staff is here to build these relationships, to be family-like, and then just having people around like that. So, yeah, I think that you're having this movement, and then there has to just be a time when there doesn't have to be, but when programs change in a big, massive way, there's just buy-in from a lot of players, whether it's, the 83 recruiting class for Miami, whether it's the 2008-9 recruiting class for Alabama, there's a time when a lot of people of a similar level of talent at a similar time come together and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And whether that's because of the coronavirus pandemic situation, I don't know if it's correlation or causation. I don't know if it's just happening in this year or it is being driven to happen because it's in this year. But Miami's on a roll in recruiting, man. We got 21 commitments right now. We're number 10 in the country. People are asking me, are we going to get a top 5 class, this and third? I don't necessarily see that happening just because we're low on numbers left. And on top of that, either you need to have guys in the boat get massive ratings bumps, or you need to flip those guys out for other blue chip guys, 4- and 5-star guys, which I don't necessarily see because for the most part, Miami's probably going to want to keep these guys. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but Miami's on a roll right now in recruiting, and I hope it continues.
I saw comments, a few in the live chat that lead me to a couple items that may give the Miami fan a little bit more hope against Clemson. So think major upsets, and I'm thinking additionally on the next level, Patriots, Giants, when New England was undefeated. What was the great equalizer in that game was defensive end play. Jason Pierre-Paul, Michael Strahan, those guys coming after the quarterback and beating tackles and getting to a great quarterback, because great quarterback play doesn't exist when the guy's on his rear end.
Fact.
And if this team has 2 great, and possibly with Jalen Phillips, 3 great pass rushers against a Clemson team that has recruited off the charts everywhere, but if there's one position where it's been not quite elite, it's offensive line, and they lose some of their best to the NFL this year, that could be a good key for Miami. Justin Ross also injured out for the season, Clemson's best wide receiver. And I'm thinking Clemson standard here, their wide receiver play was still really good last year, but it wasn't quite as good as you would think, and they are kind of searching at that position right now.
Yeah, I mean, but there's talented options. Frank Ladson from Homestead South Dade is a guy, who's there. I mean, they got guys on the roster, and so, I mean, like I was talking about earlier, Miami has talented but unproven guys at wide receiver. Clemson has more talented but unproven guys at wide receiver. You know what I mean? So, I mean, yeah, it's a thing, and then obviously in that Super Bowl, you got an incredible play by an incredible player, with that helmet catch, David Tyree, so is that a D Wiggins moment? Is that a Brevin Jordan? Is that a Will Mallory type moment? Is that a Mark Pope? Is that one of the freshman wide receivers, a Michael Redding, my guy, Keyshawn Smith? Daz Worsham, record-setting wide receiver from Alabama high school football. Xavier Restrepo, who's a technician in the slot. Mike Harley in his last go-round. Cam Harris making a play in the run game. The offensive line does something. D'Eriq King, obviously, who's been proven to be one of the better quarterbacks. And P.S., by the way, let me stop right there. I saw an Oklahoma 247 writer, so like a career journalist, right, full-time, who decided that he wanted to talk down about D'Eriq King and said, when we named him the number one quarterback, starting quarterback, QB1, he then quote tweeted a tweet from somebody saying that. He said, this is a guy who only threw for 167 yards against Oklahoma's defense, which we saw LSU throw for however many yards against and everything. Thoughts and prayers to Miami. And everybody then quoted it back and said, well, first of all, two things. Number one, you're going to just discount the 110 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions that went along with that, right? And after the game, your head coach, quarterback guru, Lincoln Riley, said that he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in college football, and 5 might be too many, saying that there's not even a handful of guys better than this dude. But you fixed your fingers to tweet this and thought you had one because he went to Miami, because he threw for fewer than 200 yards, but had almost 300 yards total offense and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions on 70 or 60% completions against your defense still? Like, he didn't sit there and dot you up. Like, okay, he didn't sit there and throw for 1,000,000 yards like Joe Burrow did. Fair. But he did numbers. So, and again, your coach gave him the high praise of saying there's not 5 quarterbacks in college football better than this guy. I was just, people will say anything for attention, and it's like, and I'm friends with this other kid, Harrison. He put up a tweet about Miami going 0 for 5 at Palmetto. Everybody screenshotted it. Now Miami has 2 of the Palmetto 5 committed. He's deleted that tweet, started a new podcast. Hey, congratulations on that. He's saying, oh, come listen to the podcast, and I'll talk about this infamous deleted tweet. I'm not going to be shock jocked. I'm not going to and maybe that's the reason, that I'm here. But I'm just trying to be about this good content, boss. I don't have to shock jock you. I don't have to play these games. I don't have to, oh, well, coming up next time and da-da-da-da, or I say something and, outlandish, and then come listen to me explain it away and da-da-da. Why? For who, for what? I give it to you straight. I give it to you real 100% of the time. But to see that from, hey, obviously, you want to do what you want to do. Buddy has a full-time journalist job. I've applied for a couple and don't have one. So, hey, maybe he knows something I don't know. Harrison has a full-time podcast and everything. Hey, maybe he knows something I don't know. But it just seems incredible to me that, especially in terms of Miami, that people just need to feel the need to be so outlandish when the truth is just right there.
Yeah, or maybe they know someone you don't know. That could be it as well, rather than something. And anytime somebody throws stats in, hey, I'm the first guy that goes to the stats just to start the conversation. I think it's a good conversation starter. Okay, how good is Barry Bonds? Okay, let's look at the numbers, and then we go from there and we start talking. But yeah, there's obviously a difference. I'm switching sports, but between this guy's a power hitter. He hit 18 home runs last year. This dude's a power hitter. He hit 45. Okay, well, unless you can really start to talk up the 18 home run guy, I'm thinking the 45 home run guy's better. But let's talk about it. And so, yeah, the stats are a starter. But I hate people that just throw out a total stat number and make that the end-all, be-all. Effectiveness at quarterback play is a lot more to do, again, with effectiveness. And that's why the QBR was developed, and not just do you throw for 4. Shoot, there's a long list of Washington State quarterbacks that have been effective, ineffective, depending on the week, that throw for 450, 5, these ridiculous numbers, but they may include 3 or 4 picks and a 45 for 72 that included a lot of bad incompletions.
Exactly.
A lot of bad decisions.
It's just one of those things. And just to wrap it up, because I feel like it was the opener. He threw for 167 yards on 52 completions. I'm sorry, 52% completions with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Derek King did against Oklahoma, and then ran for 103 and a touchdown also on a 7-yard per carry average. Yes, they got blown out because it was Houston playing. And I mean, look, they didn't even get that blown out. It was 49-31. You know what I mean? But just say, oh, he only threw for 167 yards. So we're not going to talk about the 2 touchdowns and no interceptions? We're going to talk about that? We're not going to talk about that he got you for more than 100 yards and a tutty on the ground? Like, because it run on 15 games having a passing and rushing touch. We're going to talk about any of that stuff? We're just going to cherry pick this one number and say because he threw for fewer yards than Joe Burrow, who had one of the legendary seasons ever in the history of life passing the ball at the college level, because that number wasn't the same, then he's not a worthy college player? Come on, man. You're smarter than that. And as someone who's a credentialed full-time journalist, I expect better of that, of you. So, buddy, Alan Oliver, I think is his name. Do better.